Yes, and 101.1 FM. Usually I just start out asking you a question. Is there a particular topic you want to cover today that is going to go where you would like the discussion to flow here today?
I was thinking about a question that a client asked me when we had created an estate plan for it was a married couple, and last week, and we're talking about they signed the documents, and we were chatting before they left, and they said, well, what should we do with it with our will and our powers of attorney whenever we get home? So. Excuse me. So I thought that was a good topic for today.
The actual, where do I physically keep the documents?
What do you do? What do you do? You walk out of the lawyer's office. You've got these documents, and they're the original documents with your signature on them, and they're very, very important. And what do you do? So, the first thing that I tell people you should do is, number one, if you have not already, you should take those documents and sit down with the people that you've appointed as executor or agent or trustee, and have a discussion with them about, hey, I've taken the liberty of appointing you to these positions, and just what that entails. And I always say, if the executor or the trustee wants to give me a call and say, and talk about what their responsibilities might be, we can do that too. But you definitely want to make sure that the people you've appointed in the will to perform those different functions are aware that they've been appointed, and secondly, they're aware of where the document is located, so that they can get to it. Because in the event that they need it, it's usually not best of circumstances.
Sure. Well, do people not generally ask that question ahead of time? I'm going to appoint you as my executor and get their, I don't know, if you get their permission? Is that not a typical way?
I do advise people to obtain the permission of the executor, the agent, the trustee ahead of time, but that's not always done.
Okay.
So if you haven't, that's why I said if you haven't done it already, that's the time. Okay, then let them know that they've been appointed. A lot of times folks will be sitting in my office and they'll say, well, we'll appoint the kids as executors, and we'll name the oldest first, and then we'll name the youngest the younger child as an alternate, or whatever the case may be. But I don't know that they've always necessarily gone and talked to them about it ahead of time.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Oh, that's an interesting thing, and that also brings up the question: do people generally let the people who are going to be inheriting their stuff, their materials, their possessions, do they generally let them know what the division will be? Or if they're bringing a surprise on one, say, maybe we'll just keep all this quiet? Or do people just find out upon the opening of the will?
That's across the board. It's different with every situation. I think that in my experience, most folks are pretty transparent about it with their family or other beneficiaries, but there are certainly situations where somebody will say, I don't want anybody to know about this until I'm gone.
Okay. What you have just opened up here is a subject that we can warm to pretty quickly. So the first step is make sure that you have it in the right place, and the second step is make sure the people who are going to be doing what needs to be done legally know what that place is so they can have access to it.
Yeah, and to the extent, talking about what the right place is, you want those documents to be in a safe place but an accessible place. So I usually recommend a desk drawer, a filing cabinet, a home safe, to the extent that your executors and agents or trustees are going to know how to access that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the kids will, if it is the kids, they'll know how to get into mom and dad's home safe.
They put them in those fireproof boxes.
That's what I mean. Yep. Or even some folks use their gun safe.
Okay.
What you don't want to do is put the documents in your safe deposit box at the bank. That can cause problems because each bank is going to have a different procedure for how that box gets opened after someone passes away, a lot of times your executors aren't going to have a key, so that can cause problems.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excuse me. And of course you don't want to hide it somewhere that only I know where this is. That's not a good thing.
Yeah. I don't know if you're completely through with that particular topic, but an offshoot of it is someone who has wishes upon their death for the disposal of the body, the funeral arrangements, all of those. I know that the smart thing to do is work through the funeral home and get all of those pre-arrangements made. But again, it would seem the wise thing to be sure that, and maybe an attorney needs to be brought in on this as well. What happens to my body after I die, especially if there's not a spouse that is going to be handling those details?
Mm-hmm. A lot of folks want to put that in the will, and I'm happy to do it. It's not a problem to do that, but usually the will isn't looked at, isn't opened until after all those things are taken care of. I was
thinking, yeah.
And so if you put it, in the will or as a separate instruction sheet with the will, there's still a good chance that it's not going to be viewed prior to any final arrangements. So, like you said, the best thing to do is to pre-plan your funeral. And I tell every single estate planning client that I really believe that is one of the nicest gifts that you can give to your family is to pre-plan and prepay for your funeral. Yeah. And it's a really morbid thing and not something that anybody wants to go and sit down and talk about. But I've just seen, I've seen both sides of it. And when you have a family come in and everything's been taken care of, it's so much easier. So that's the best way to do it. If you can't do that, then just make sure that your family, your next of kin, knows what you want, and knows if there is an instruction sheet or if the instructions are contained within your will, knows where those are.
Now, when you put together an estate plan or a last will and testament of somebody, that has the force of law behind it, and there are specific procedures to contest. Would it be the same with just an envelope that you leave behind, and you want your arrangements handled in this way, and somebody else decides, no, that's not good enough for my mom, my dad, I'm going to do it differently?
No, that's not going to be something that is generally legally binding. Now, if someone wanted to immediately file a petition in Court of Common Pleas and present as evidence the instruction sheet that mom or dad left and signed, that would probably be persuasive evidence, but it's not something like a will or a contract that is just automatically, like you said, has the force of law behind it. So really, if it's something that's very important to you, and some people say, well, I'm going to be gone, and I don't really care how whatever the family wants is fine. But if it's something that's really important to you, I would say to make those prearrangements at the funeral home.
Okay. Now, I took you down a different road.
No, that's fine.
Let's get back to the road on which we began. We have put the papers in the proper place. The executors, all the people who will be involved in executing those, they have been notified. And so once it comes time for them to do their duties, do they need to be in touch with the attorney who prepared it?
The executors, the agents, have the right to choose any attorney they like. They should be in contact with an attorney to understand, because it's not always so intuitive what your obligations are under serving in those roles. So you definitely want to be in contact with an attorney. The attorney that drafted the documents and had those communications with mom or dad or the other person who's deceased would more than likely be a good place to start.
Yeah, absolutely. They had the conversations.
Right. One other thing that I was going to mention about kind of what you do with these documents, powers of attorney. You've got healthcare powers of attorney. You want to provide those to your doctor You want to make sure they have a copy. You want to make sure you have extra copies. So you take them to, if you go to the hospital or you go to see a specialist, those are healthcare powers of attorney. Those and they include living will, advance directive provisions in them. The other thing is your financial power of attorney, and this is something that I'm dealing with more and more. So I'm suggesting that if you have a financial power of attorney, after you sign it, leave my office, take it to the bank, show it to them, give them a copy. Every bank has a legal department that will review those whenever they receive them. I'm finding it's much better to have have the banks review your financial powers of attorney now rather than wait until you're incapacitated and your agent goes and they say, well, we have questions about this language or something, because every bank is different. And in my experience, the bigger the bank, the more issues arise. So, but I'm just suggesting to everybody to have those reviewed ahead of time.
It all starts with the visit to the attorney in the first place, to start drawing up the legal documents and thinking about, okay, one of these days this is going to happen. It might be a month down the road. It might be a year down the road. It might be 20 or 30 years down the road. But at one point, I'm going to pass away, and I need to be sure that I'm where I need to be. And that initial visit is what's going to get that whole process rolling.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And unfortunately, most people procrastinate. And so I'd advise you to take care of those things sooner rather than later.
And to do that with you, what do they need to do?
Check out the website at www.westernpalawyer.com. Call at 724-465-5826 or stop by in the Atrium Building, downtown Indiana.
He's Marshall Chriswell.
Thanks.
He's back next week. It's Indiana in the Morning.